Diapered Dandy opened her eyes slowly and saw the sky grey with the billowing smoke from the recently exploded cabin. She groaned as she got to her feet slowly and looked around for Arson. "Brianna," she called out, getting no response. The sun had started to set, and the forest surrounding the cabin was no doubt full of many threats that two weakened heroes would be in no shape to face. Jessica continued her search for Arson, and finally found her laying face down in a clearing several yards from the cabin. "Brianna!" Jessica shouted as she ran to the downed woman. Jessica quickly rolled her over and saw that apart from several cuts and bruises she appeared to be unharmed. Arson opened her eyes and looked up at Jessica, a smile spreading across her face. "Glad you're having a good time," Jessica said with a smile of her own. Arson sat up and watched Jessica intently as she got up herself. "What happened?" she asked. "The cabin blew up. I just hope Numina wasn't in there," Jessica said. "Who?" Arson asked. Jessica stared at Arson for a moment. "Numina, the hero we were sent out here to rescue," she said. "Oh, okay then," Arson said with a confused look on her face. "You do know who we are, don't you?" Jessica asked, getting very worried about her teammate. Arson nodded and smiled. "I'm Brianna Cobb, and you're my sister Lindsay," she said. Diapered Dandy opened her eyes slowly and saw the sky grey with the billowing smoke from the recently exploded cabin. She groaned as she got to her feet slowly and looked around for Arson. "Brianna," she called out, getting no response. The sun had started to set, and the forest surrounding the cabin was no doubt full of many threats that two weakened heroes would be in no shape to face. Jessica continued her search for Arson, and finally found her laying face down in a clearing several yards from the cabin. "Brianna!" Jessica shouted as she ran to the downed woman. Jessica quickly rolled her over and saw that apart from several cuts and bruises she appeared to be unharmed. Arson opened her eyes and looked up at Jessica, a smile spreading across her face. "Glad you're having a good time," Jessica said with a smile of her own. Arson sat up and watched Jessica intently as she got up herself. "What happened?" she asked. "The cabin blew up. I just hope Numina wasn't in there," Jessica said. "Who?" Arson asked. Jessica stared at Arson for a moment. "Numina, the hero we were sent out here to rescue," she said. "Oh, okay then," Arson said with a confused look on her face. "You do know who we are, don't you?" Jessica asked, getting very worried about her teammate. Arson nodded and smiled. "I'm Brianna Cobb, and you're my sister Lindsay," she said. Jessica looked into Arson's eyes for a sign that she was joking but found none. "Your sister?" she asked. The raven-haired fire controller smiled at Jessica. "We should get back home before Mommy gets worried about us," Arson said as she got to her feet. "How old are you, Brianna?" Jessica asked her teammate. "I'm this many," Brianna said excitedly as she held up 5 fingers. "Great," Jessica thought to herself. "Brianna, can you try and fly for me?" Jessica asked her child-minded teammate. Arson looked at her quizzically for a moment and then giggled. "Your silly sister, I can't fly," she said. "Perfect," Jessica said. Taking Arson's hand, she flew into the air, startling the girl who clung tightly to the woman she believed to be her sister, whimpering in fear that she would fall. Jessica took them back to the base, hoping that Arson would snap out of her condition quickly. Severe and Fantasy looked up at the Abyss Towers, the large skyscraper owned and operated in secret by Malta. The pair watched a flood of workers pour from the entrance of the building after Fantasy had made them think the building was full of snakes and spiders, her power amplified by Severe so that she could affect all the non-Malta people in the building. "Like taking candy from a baby," Fantasy said with a smile. "We should not be so quick to claim victory," Severe said. "Arson was right, you're a wet blanket," Miranda said with a frown. "I am practical, a trait which would serve the both of you well," Severe said. "Whatever, let's do this thing if we're gonna do it," Fantasy said as she headed for the entrance of the building, pushing through the crowd. Severe sighed and followed her teammate into the great glass structure, her practicality screaming at her that something was not right about the situation inside. The fire alarm was ringing inside the building as they entered, triggered by one of the panicked workers. Severe and Fantasy made their way to the elevators and up to the top floor of the building, where their information led them to believe that Manticore was being held. "Not a lot of action so far," Fantasy said. Severe nodded. "I fear that we may be getting more than we bargained for," she said. Fantasy shrugged. "I say bring on the straight fight, I'm kinda bored with this straight path of no resistance," she said. The elevator stopped at their floor and the doors opened, revealing a large laboratory and a man standing in the center of it. The man was dressed similar to a cowboy and smiled widely when the two heroes entered the room. "Welcome, ladies," the man said cheerfully. "My name is Sigma Black and you're gonna love me," he said. "Somehow I doubt that," Fantasy said with a scoff. "No, I'm serious," he said. "I know Severe will anyway," he added with a smile. "And why is that?" Severe asked. "Glad you asked, little lady," he said as he stepped over to a nearby console and picked up a CD and put it into the machine. A large monitor came on after a moment and started playing a video of a lab technician and a little girl. "Experiment number 47521, the scientist in the video said to the camera. "Subject's name is Olivia Chambers, age 12, the man said. Severe looked at the little girl intently. She was an albino like her. Severe felt her stomach begin to churn when the realization that she was watching a video of herself being experimented on as a child set in. Here, in the most unlikely of places, she was finally getting the information that she had sought her whole life. Subject has been treated with gene therapy that has granted her mental abilities in the form of telekinesis and telepathy, the doctor explained. Tests on the subject are to determine proficiency in combat situations, he added. Severe and Fantasy watched in horror as several soldiers armed with riot batons entered the room where the little girl was being detained and began attacking her. The girl screamed and put her arms up in defense. Several blows landed on her and brought her to her knees. Then the girl stopped screaming and looked up at the soldiers as she began to float upward into the air. The soldiers backed away from the young girl and attempted to get out their guns. The guns were pulled from their hands by the girl's powers and aimed at them. Seconds later the guns went off and the soldiers were dead or dying. Test successful, the doctor said, ending the video. Severe felt a tear roll down her cheek as her emotions began to build inside of her. "Why?" she asked Sigma Black quietly. "You were a latchkey kid, easy to pick up off the street and use for testing," he said. "Turned out quite well except for the whole hero bit," he said. "And my family?" she asked, her powers building along with her emotions. "Dead, I'm afraid," Sigma Black told her. "You shouldn't be mad, you should be thanking us," he added. Severe plucked the man from where he stood with her powers and mentally threw him through the window behind him, sending him plummeting to the earth below. "Thank you," she said. "Severe, I'm sorry for what they did to you, but this isn't the way to handle this," Fantasy said. Severe chuckled. "A minute ago you were aching for a fight," she said. Fantasy nodded. "Yeah, but you look like you're ready for a lot worse than a fight," she said. "You're right, I'm ready for a massacre," Severe said with a smile as she floated over to the elevator and tore it from the wall and flung it across the room and entered the now empty shaft. "She thinks she's 5 and that I'm her sister," Jessica explained to Dementia's Knight as he began his examination of Arson. Knight shone a light in the young hero's eyes and had her follow a pen with her eyes. "She seems fine other than that," he said. "I'll give her a CAT scan and see what we can find," he said. Jessica nodded and sat next to Arson on the exam table. "You doing okay, kiddo?" she asked. Arson had taken to sucking her thumb and twirling her hair with her finger but nodded slowly. "Who are these people?" she asked after removing her thumb from her mouth. "They're friends. They're gonna help you to get better," Jessica explained. Arson nodded again. "How come you can fly, sister?" she asked. "I have superpowers," Jessica said. "Neat," Brianna said with a wide grin. "You have them too," Jessica explained. "You can control fire and fly," she said. "Really?" Brianna asked with wide eyes. Jessica smiled. "Yeah, and as soon as you get better you'll remember how to use them," she said. "What's wrong with me?" Brianna asked with a slight pout at the implication that she was somehow flawed. "Oh, don't be sad, honey, nothing is wrong with you. You just don't remember how to use your powers is all. These nice people are gonna help you," Jessica said. Brianna nodded and put her thumb back into her mouth. Jessica smiled at her and started stroking her hair to put her at ease.